He's about even on immigration in total, but everything else, he's sort of underwater. And particularly on the economy, tariffs, and inflation, he's well underwater. You've still got some work to do in that front. A lot of people think that he's spending too much time on tariffs and not enough time on the economy and lowering prices. What do you say?
Well, I don't want to make things awkward for you, John, but it is our opinion that Fox News needs to fire its pollster. And I won't surprise you with that. I don't think you're surprised that I'm saying that. But the Fox News pollster has always been wrong about President Trump. They were the ones that said all summer long that Kamala Harris was going to be the 47th president of the United States. So we don't acknowledge any of that polling.
What do you think of the Amazon decision on the tariff in terms of clarity? And Caroline Levitt saying that the president sees it as a hostile and political act to say that the price increases that they are facing would be due to the tariffs.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's hostile or not. I will say that there was no mention whatsoever at Amazon about Joe Biden's inflation. And the fact is that we got to 40-year highs. Inflation measured by the Consumer Price Index was up 9.1%. We all remember we were at the cash register. Everything cost so much more. So, you know, why they're putting a little bug now, this is because of the tariffs, and they didn't put a little bug, this is because of the $7 trillion spent by the Democrats under Joe Biden, is a question.
Boy, 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 boy. So we have to continue our coverage of the current trade war / trade negotiations that are happening between the United States of America and China and the United States of America and the rest of the world, okay? As the mainstream liberal media, along with Wall Street and the Democrat Party, they are hell-bent on trying to undermine President Trump when it comes to the leverage that we currently have over China in this trade war. Because despite what you may or may not hear in the liberal media, China is beginning to fold, right? They're beginning to cave. The other day, we just talked about China removing 125% tariffs on certain U.S. goods, and now they're doing it again, right? So they're adding more goods to the list of imports that they don't want to be tariffed, okay? So that means that China is trying to de-escalate. Let's read about this one. China waived a 125% tariff on ethane imports from the U.S. on Tuesday, according to a report from Reuters. China had initially imposed a tariff earlier this month as a part of its retaliation campaign against President Donald Trump's Liberation Day tariff campaign. China is responsible for purchasing roughly half of America's ethane exports each year, according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration. Ethane joins a growing list of products that China has granted tariff exemptions for amid the ongoing trade war with Washington. Last week, China's officials granted exemptions for pharmaceuticals, microchips, and aircraft engines, and were asking firms to identify critical goods they need levy-free. News of the ethane tariff removal comes after U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent insisted that Trump's tariffs were putting major pressure on Beijing. Speaking at the White House on Tuesday morning, Bessent said the tariffs stand to cost China millions of jobs if it doesn't change course. Yeah, so you see that, you heard that, okay? What is happening here is something that you're not going to see reported in the mainstream liberal media, because according to them, in Wall Street and corporate America, these tariffs are only hurting us. Right? They're not hurting China. They're only hurting us. Okay. The dollar's about to collapse. The bond market's going to collapse. The stock market's going to collapse. Everything is going to collapse. The economy's going to collapse because of these tariffs from President Trump. Right. But again, they don't talk about the fact that in China, they're currently hurting. And you know this because they're starting to fold. Right. They're folding even more. They're like, okay, we need to ratchet this down. We need to de-escalate. And that's what you're currently seeing happening. But like I told you guys, Trump is not just against the Democrats and the liberal media. He's also against corporate America. One of the biggest companies in this country that relies on China is Amazon. And it's no surprise to me that there was news that came out of Amazon trying to do what some of these Chinese platforms are doing that sell their products directly to consumers in the United States of America, which is to list the import charge on the pages of the products that people are buying, right? So if you are buying a product on Amazon, the rumor is that they were going to try to list the tariff, okay, how much of the price comes from the tariff on the product, right? Now, again, this is what they're doing on some of these Chinese websites that people buy from. And Amazon allegedly was thinking about doing the same thing until President Trump called Jeff Bezos up and basically chewed him out over this proposal. So the White House came out and went off on Jeff Bezos' Amazon for this rumor that they would put this type of pricing in place.
Hi, Mr. Secretary. So it was reported this morning that Amazon will soon display a little number next to the price of each product that shows how much the Trump tariffs are adding to the cost of each product. So isn't that a perfect, crystal clear demonstration that it's the American consumer and not China who is going to have to pay for these policies?
I will take this, since I just got off the phone with the president about Amazon's announcement. This is a hostile and political act by Amazon. Why didn't Amazon do this when the Biden administration hiked inflation to the highest level in 40 years? And I would also add that it's not a surprise because, as Reuters recently wrote, Amazon has partnered with a Chinese propaganda arm. So this is another reason why Americans should buy American. It's another reason why we are onshoring critical supply chains here at home to shore up our own critical supply chain and boost our own manufacturing here.
Is Jeff Bezos still a Trump supporter?
Look, I will not speak to the president's relationships with Jeff Bezos, but I will tell you that this is certainly a hostile and political action by Amazon. And Secretary, if you have anything to add.
Yeah, so before we get into the Treasury Secretary and his response, of course, the mainstream liberal media loves this, right? CNN went out of their way to let the world know that they think that this is a great idea.
Well, let's just think about a nutritional label on a product. I mean, many of us look at those labels when we go in, we're looking at the calories, looking at how much protein something has. Imagine if you could have that kind of transparency when you're buying your phone or buying your car or buying avocados. That's powerful. First of all, it's an amazing use of the incredible amounts of big data that these companies have. I mean, this is a great use of it. It is very political, I would say. I mean, the president, Carolyn Levitt, channeling the president, called it a hostile and political act, which did sound very threatening in terms of what the president was channeling to Jeff Bezos there. I think it's also very interesting in terms of where big tech and where some of the largest and most powerful CEOs in the country stand in relation to Trump. And I was wondering when this penny was going to drop, because yes, you saw, as Caitlin said, them all sitting in the front row at the inauguration. It was this sort of parade of American oligarchs. On the other hand, boy, have their businesses been hit by Liberation Day. Confidence is down. We've seen consumers very worried about the economy, about spending. That has huge potential economic impact, and it has political impact too. I think we're going to see this. I won't call it a war, but this conflict, perhaps, between Amazon and the president, really resonate both economically and politically. I imagine that Republicans and Democrats are thinking about what to make of this right now.
Yeah. So again, apparently, Amazon, Jeff Bezos, they decided to fold on this, or at least they're coming out and saying that was never what they were trying to do, right? That this is not what was happening after President Trump called up Bezos and chewed him out. Trump called Bezos on Tuesday morning to complain about the reports. Two senior officials in the White House told CNN, adding the president was, quote, pissed. Amazon spokesperson Tim Doyle told the Bezos-owned Washington Post there was, quote, never a consideration for the main Amazon site to display the levy-related fees to consumers, but wrote in a statement to Forbes, the company, quote, considered the idea of listing import charges on certain products on its ultra-discount haul platform. The haul tariff price listing was, quote, never approved and not going to happen, added Doyle. Amazon stock declined 1% Tuesday morning, with much of the losses following Levitt's jab at the retailer, whose shares moved against a modest rise for the S&P 500. Yeah, so again, what you have here is Amazon deciding to fold, right, to backtrack on this whole pricing scheme, right, in which they include the cost of the tariffs. Now, again, why am I not surprised by this, right? The reason why I'm not surprised by it is because I'm trying to tell you guys, President Trump is not just fighting against China. He's fighting against, like, domestic forces as well, too. You have the liberal media running their propaganda, Wall Street bond dumping, okay, and putting out their propaganda as well too, claiming that the economy is going to collapse, the dollar is going to collapse, investors don't want to invest in the United States of America, all nonsensical stuff, right? But this is what they put out there. And then you have some of these companies like Amazon, for example, doing stuff like this, right? Or potentially doing stuff like this, right? Which, by the way, I don't think this would have been that bad, to be honest with you, because these people keep claiming that tariffs are inflation, right? At the very least, if they were to do this, people could see that, okay, the price has not went up. This is just the tariff, right? This is the price as a result of the tariff. And who knows? A lot of people will probably just choose not to buy the items that are tariffed, and they'll just look for substitutes. So, honestly, yes, I do think that this was a hostile and political act, but I don't think it's all that bad, right? I don't think it's all that bad for the American people to say, okay, this item right here comes from China. Look at this high tariff. Let me buy American made, right? Let me find a substitute, or let me save some money, right? Let me just spend less, right? On Chinese goods, cheap Chinese goods. Yeah, I think that that probably would not have been a bad outcome, but hey, I get why, politically speaking, this doesn't look good for the administration, because essentially they can point the finger at the tariff directly and say, hey, this is how much Trump is costing you, right? And that is why CNN loves it. That's why the Democrat Party loves it. And that's why it was put out there in the first place, right? Because it's a swipe at the president. What Amazon should do to support the United States in this trade war against China, if they were a patriotic company, this is what they would do, is that they should have a Made in America tab, right? For items that are made in America, products that are mostly made in America, and allow people to search and buy stuff based off what's made in America, right? I mean, if you want to add more transparency to what people are shopping for, then that is what Amazon should do, right? They should allow people to filter for made in America products, right? That's a great idea in my opinion. So like I try to tell you guys, President Trump, unlike China, has to deal with domestic enemies trying to undermine the president, trying to take away his leverage against China, because they want to continue to do business as usual with China. They don't want this trade war with China. They don't want to reorganize global trade in our favor. They don't want to do any of that. They want to continue to do business with China at all costs. And again, you see the companies like Amazon that is doing a whole lot of business with China. You see the type of stuff they're putting out there, right? I'm just saying, this is not a coincidence.
Yeah, I would also add that the bringing down the terrible Biden inflation has been a priority for the first 100 days of the Trump administration, and President Trump has done a great job of leading that since January 20th. Interest rates, mortgage rates are down, gasoline and energy prices are down. We're expecting the further decreases, and as Caroline said, the big tax on consumers that goes unnoticed is deregulation or regulation, and we are deregulating and bringing that down. So, from a household income point of view, we would expect real purchasing increases. We've seen them over the first 100 days, and we would expect that to accelerate. We are doing peace deals, trade deals, tax deals, and deregulating. And the deregulation is a longer lead time, but I think by the third and fourth quarters, that's really going to kick in.
Kelly, go ahead.
Yeah, and that's what people are not really accounting for when you talk about Trump's economy, right? The main things that President Trump wants to do haven't even kicked in yet. We're just getting started. This is why, again, I think the mainstream level media, they're making a mistake taking this victory lap here based off their fake polls.
Thank you, Caroline. A question for you and Secretary Bezos. We talk a lot about volatility and uncertainty in the marketplace, and the president has stated all along that he's more concerned about mainstream America, the American worker. You just talked about deregulation and this entire fair trade and reciprocals. What is your message to the American people in terms of letting them get through this disturbance and the outcome being greater and a greater good for the American worker, the American people, the American families?
I would say trust in President Trump. There's a reason he was reelected to this office. It's because of the historic success of his economic formula in the first term, and as I laid out at the beginning of the briefing and the Secretary has talked about and the President talks about every day, there's a proven formula that works. massive deregulation, energy independence, and tax cuts, which are coming. And the Secretary is working very hard on that with our counterparts on Capitol Hill.
So it's really a three-legged stool in the economic policy. It's trade, it's tax, and it's deregulation. So we are in the midst of addressing, as Caroline said, these long-term trade imbalances. The tax bill is going much better than I would have thought when I took office on January 28th, and that's through President Trump's leadership. That Speaker Johnson, Leader Thune are united. Speaker Johnson, we had a very good meeting yesterday with somebody called the Big Six, NEC Director Kevin Hassett, myself, Speaker Johnson, Leader Thune, Committee Chairman Jason Smith, and Senator Crapo. And the tax bill is moving forward. It is going to give permanence to the 2017 Tax Cuts and Job Act, which will, back to the question on certainty, it will give American business certainty, it will give American people certainty, and then President Trump is also adding the things for working Americans that is talked about earlier: no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, making auto payments deductible. So that will substantially address the affordability crisis. And the other thing that I would note, and back to data, is that the Vanguard, one of the largest money management firms in America, said that over the past 100 days, 97% of Americans haven't done a trade. And in fact, individual investors have held tight while institutional investors have panicked. So individual investors trust, investors trust President Trump.
Yeah, I mean, the individual investors are the smart investors here, right? Again, it's Wall Street. They're the ones that are freaking out about this because, again, they love doing business with China, right? With Daddy China. But again, what we have here is a complete and total overreaction from the media, right? It's just flat out Trump derangement, okay? Because everybody knows, okay, that as soon as these trade deals start to get done, right, China is already trying to de-escalate. The market is going to shoot up to new highs that we've never seen before, especially when the GOP passes their supply side stimulus, okay? I mean, we're talking about the biggest tax cut in history, along with deregulation like we've never seen before, and we're going to have more favorable trade deals that are going to be better for U.S. producers, and the feds could start dropping interest rates. Boy, again, we're going to see a boom that we've never seen before, okay? If all of this works out. And I think that the smart money knows this, right? Smart money understands that, hey, just have a little bit more patience and you're going to see light at the end of the tunnel here.
Let's get straight to our lead guest this morning. That would Mr. Wonderful, Kevin OLeary. I was intrigued to hear the president's own words. We are very close to a deal with India. And you think that's very important, don't you?
Yeah, it was leaked by Gasparino on Friday. And then during the White House Correspondents' Dinner, it was leaked all over the place with all the outlets. And then Bassett on Monday, before the market opened, said, watch this space here. Clearly they're just signaling, we're going to take one of these deals, India's going to be it, we're going to ink it and make it a template for EU, England, Switzerland, Canada, Mexico, Japan. That's 72% of all the trade. So if you get that done, you're done, so to speak. I mean,
why do you think we've not got that deal with India done yet?
Trade deals are tough. I've never heard of any administration, either of you, ever announce 60 negotiations simultaneously. You know, you talk about a NAFTA or an EU deal or something with England, which is out of the EU now. I think the market would really, really like to see one, to get an idea of two things: the pace at which this is coming, and secondly, the fact that they can get one done, because it has been 100 days. The tariff narrative is really getting intense, and people would like to know, okay, what does the deal look like with India? I mean, I'm very interested to find out if we can ship fully manufactured automotive product into India without 110% tariff. That's good. And reciprocal, I think they may go to a zero tariff situation or a very low reciprocal. The market would love that, Stuart. They really would.
Exactly. And you are going to see, if this happens, that all of these people that were out here boo-hooing and crying on Wall Street about the trade war, right? All of these people are going to be singing Trump's praises, right? They're going to do a complete 180 when it comes to the narrative around the tariffs. Because, again, ultimately, in the day, we're trying to open up markets, right? That's what we're trying to do. And we're trying to essentially move manufacturing out of China, right? Either back to the United States or to other countries where we have a more diversified group of foreign producers, okay, who are providing products to the United States of America, and we're not just reliant on one country. Again, India is going to be a big part of that. Right now, India seems like they might be hell-bent on going to war with Pakistan, which could lead to World War III. Who knows? We should watch out for that one, right? The conflict between India and Pakistan. But yeah, I mean, they probably want good relations with the United States of America, considering how it seems like they're about to go to war, right? So I'm just saying that, this stuff is working itself out. People have to be patient, right? It takes years typically to work out trade deals, and to expect a trade deal in a month is ridiculous. But it really shows you what a lot of these people are about, right? They're just about there being a deal on paper rather than the details. I'm concerned about the details, okay? Is it going to open up markets? Is it going to help U.S. manufacturers, sell products to other parts of the world? Yeah, I mean, I'm very interested in the actual details. So I'm not rushing them to get a deal just to get a deal, right? Because I want them to make the right deal, okay? But the markets, again, they're rushing to just, throw a deal on the table just to say that you got a deal. And it's like, no, you are taking away our leverage, right? That's what's happening. And that's what I really don't like about all this, is that the liberal media, the Democrats, and Wall Street are all going out of their way to undermine the president and his leverage. If they actually were all on the same team when it comes to trying to establish maximum leverage, this trade war will be over by now, right? To be honest with you.
To keep the confidence of the market, you've got to get on with this fairly quickly. If you don't get a deal with, say, India for a month or two, the market gets very worried, because you don't have a template for other trading partners.
So you don't really need a template, because every deal is going to be different. Every country is going to be different, right? So, I mean, again, they want templates. They want to just slap stuff together. That's Wall Street, because ultimately all they care about is their short-term gains out of this, right? So that they can get their bonuses and to pretend like they're geniuses when it comes to managing money, right? This is what they're concerned about. I'm concerned about the long term. What's actually in the deal? Right? What's in the deal? They just, you got to put a deal together. You just got to do a deal, right? And it's like, no. That's not how this works. That's not how this works at all.
Point, but the Indians know that too.
Yeah, exactly.
So you got to be thinking about it. They're thinking to themselves,
whoever goes first,
no, it's a head squeezer.
Get a deal.
It's a head squeezer. But I think they also should know they'll get the best deal if they go first, whatever that best deal is. The market needs a deal. Everybody agrees with that, including Mr. Market.
Yeah. Now, Besant said strategic uncertainty. Uncertainty is a good thing in negotiations, and that's true, isn't it?
Is there any other mode? Is there any other mode Trump operates in other than that? For 12 years, I've watched total uncertainty all the time until there's certainty. I mean, if you're not used to that, what do? I mean, there's never been an administration that believes in sausage being made visibility, because there's cameras everywhere all the time, and for many people, that's very uncomfortable. I'm kind of ignoring it now because it's just noise like crazy versus trying to figure out what the signal is as an investor. That's what my job is. And other investors, too, are starting to say, wait a second, what's actually happening here versus all of the stuff that's coming out of the White House?
I'm surprised that the market is not more positive on what Besant had to say about the tax cut package. He's saying, look, we got all this tariff revenue coming in, and we will use it to pay for no tax on overtime, no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security benefits. And there was another one in there, too. I can't remember what it was. Auto interest. You can deduct that.
Yeah, I'm a little nervous about Ways and Means weighting tariffs as if they remain there in perpetuity. It's tough because tariffs are generally used as weaponry to negotiate trade deals. And until the deals are signed, you don't know what the reciprocal tariff is. So I'm not sure that the administration is going to get as much credit in Congress using tariffs as a way to offset tax income. I don't think that's an easy sell. I think it's tough.
Overall, do you think the tariff policy is a good policy?
I'm a free trade guy. I don't like tariffs. I like tariffs as weaponry. And what I love to see, if it was the India deal we keep talking about, if India came out saying, okay, everybody, we want zero tariffs between the two nations, the market would be up 2,000 points.
Yep.
It would love that.
Yeah, but we didn't get it.
Not yet. Not yet, but that's why it's a head squeezer. It's a head squeezer. And Bessent knows that. By the way, have you noticed Bessent's kind of taken over the television on all of this? I don't see Lutnick anymore.
Right.
I don't see anybody anymore.
Don't see Navarro.
Navarro not there. So the White House that's a signal. That's a signal because he's a more rational dude. You know what I mean?
Quieter, calmer guy.
Yeah.
That's a good way to sell your tariff policy.
Exactly.
Talk through politics.
Yeah. Again, a lot of this is just noise, man. It's just noise, and the media just refuses to report on the other side of the equation, right? What's happening with China, right? The fact that they're rolling back some of their tariffs. Remember, every time Trump rolls back a tariff, Trump is folding, right? Which is what they want him to do, but they're going to criticize him for folding, even though they're begging him to fold, right? Which is funny because it's now damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? But when China rolls back their tariffs, right, they ain't got nothing to say about it, right? Crickets. They don't want to report that, okay, for whatever reason. It just shows you what President Trump is up against. As Kevin O'Leary pointed out, yeah, I mean, once we get this first deal done, like the market is going to skyrocket, right? I mean, once all this stuff is done, again, it's going to go to levels that we've never seen before because ultimately we're going to be in a better situation. But for whatever reason, it seems like that's not what the liberal media wants, right? They don't want us to win, okay? They'd rather see the country lose than for Trump to win. They'd rather see China win than for Trump to win, right? That is essentially what's happening. That's what we're witnessing with all this propaganda from the media. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.